Welcome to Bulletcast, a bullet catcher gaming podcast. In this episode, we'll be talking about the possible future of Ghost Recon. We have special guests today that Andy will announce, and now your host, Andy from Bullet Catcher Gaming.
Thank you, Marcus. Appreciate the intro as always. We've got a special one today. We've got a couple of Delta members on here. It's not just me this time. So let me run through everybody that's on. We've got the usuals. Obviously, Sandy's here. Obviously, your intro host, Grandpa 8 Up. Tonka's here. J Rocky's here. We've also got AI Blue Fox as one of our guests today. We've got ITK5 as one of our special guests as well today. Brian BB Gaming as well as our special guest today. And also from the Discord, we've got Stabby McStabs Gaming. So, there's 9 of us today. Thank you so much for jumping in and listening. I do want to just have a quick apology because if I have had so many comments on videos recently and I've been working a lot, there's still loads of comments that I've been asking for a lot of feedback. I am reading them. I haven't replied. I think I've got about 1,000 to reply to at the moment. I am getting through them. So if people think, well, you're asking for feedback and not answering, I am reading them. It's just work is crazy. So I will reply. So please bear with me. So initially we weren't going to do this subject, but I thought, given the company that we have with us today, which I do really appreciate everyone for coming on, we change the subject to something that's possibly more prevalent in the news. I'm sure everybody has seen it, and if you haven't seen it, there is discussions about Ubisoft being sold. Now, when I had a look at this earlier today, I think it's still more it's falling within the rumor mill. There's no proof. Ubisoft haven't said they're up for sale, but you tend to find that these rumors they're picking up more and more. More places are reporting on it. They're now even talking about certain companies that might be interested. We'll get into all of that in a minute. So we thought it would be interesting to have a look at the actual franchise as itself. Obviously, it's 20 years old. You know, we know we're getting a new game. We know that we're getting Frontline. So we thought we would have a look at the franchise in total, in its entirety, where it's going, and what would happen to it if it's sold. If Ubisoft is sold, would someone come in and go, we don't want that anymore? Or would they go, no, look, this has got 20-year legacy. You know, here's extra staff, money. Let's make this thing even better than it can be, and make the best game ever. That's what we're going to discuss. So I think just to open us up, let's have one of our special guests maybe just start off with, what you think. Where do you think this franchise is? Let's begin with that. Where do you think it's in? A good place, bad place? Knowing that there's a new game. Let's just open up the floor to one of our special guests to start us off.
I got you. Yeah.
Let's do it.
I can go. Yeah. Thank you for having me on, Bullet. But I think the state of the company, I guess, right now, I feel like you could look at it as being really negative, but also talking about someone picking up the whole franchise. That actually could be like almost a rebirth or what would you say? Like it would be something where they can actually build back potentially a good game versus the game that we have had so many problems. But also it came in to be, Motherland actually was fun to play, and I play PvP primarily only. I didn't even touch the story mode. I got to level 150 and I was done. And I was done with the story mode, but I actually played Motherland in the conquest mode multiple times because it was just fun actually doing that. And if they kept doing that and kept on that road or saw that success and built off it for the new game, I think it could be an actual good game that came out. I just think the key to that is not rushing it. I don't think if they come out in 2 years, I think they could come out with a great game in 2 years, but I think the chances of that is way lower versus them taking their time to actually build out a game that they see being a winner and kind of more unique. I think they have the chance to do that rather than just Wildlands and Breakpoint very similar. Like they are, it's basically Wildlands remastered, but it's different in its own ways as well. But if you actually look at it, they're very similar. So maybe they take this chance to kind of get away from that and to build kind of a new, not completely new, but just take the game different from what Breakpoint and Wildlands was. I think it could be a potentially good thing, but it also, it could go either way, really,
Yeah, so I'm hoping that they've learned their lesson from Breakpoint. I mean, without a shadow of doubt, the game today, the PvE game, I think the PvP game is a different topic, but the PvE game is better than it was at launch, and the launch Breakpoint was probably a real low. And I think you make a good point, Brian, about it was rushed. Wildlands was 5 years in the making, and they had a lot of time to think things, and they had a good concept. Breakpoint
they also had a good crew as well.
Just way too quick, and they didn't have time to think, is this the right thing to do?
Do you think? Do you think quickly on that point about rushing the game? I thought it was kind of interesting that you got Wildlands, and then 2 years later you got Breakpoint, and then I wondered if they were starting. Yeah, it was that quick, and
that's wow.
Yeah, it was that fast. 2 years later, it was. I was wondering if they were about to start a trend. So, for example, I think Far Cry 5. Did I just say that wrong? Far Cry 5. Sounds like I've been drinking. Far Cry 5. It's been a long day. That came out, and then they did. I don't even think it was 2 years later. I think it was just before the 2-year mark. So it was like 1 year and 10 months or something like that. They did Far Cry. Was it New? What was it called? It was basically
New Dawn.
Yeah,
Far Cry.
Far Cry meets Fallout.
It was Far Cry 5 reskinned effectively. And I thought, is this how they're gonna? I really did think that this might be a model that Ubisoft were about to start doing. So they spend, say, 3-4 years developing one game, and when that game comes out, whilst they're working on the next big title, say 4 years down the line, they would then go and play around with the last title, putting one out in the middle in the interim 2 years later with a bit of a reskin and a few little extra bits that they held back and things like that. And it did genuinely worry me, and I thought, is this what we're going to get all the time now?
I mean, like Andy, that trend also started like years before, because between Far Cry 4 and Far Cry 5, there was Far Cry Primal, which the map was literally a reskin of the Far Cry 4 map. So
have they done it on any other Ubisoft games?
Yeah, it's just Far Cry.
How many Assassin's Creed games got reskinned?
It seems there's the trend.
I don't know them well enough.
The thing is, though, Andy, I always think though that would have probably worked for Breakpoint if they hadn't tried to rebuild it from the ground up. If they took Fallen Ghosts and waited a bit longer and just done a bit more work with Fallen Ghosts, that would have been the ideal Breakpoint.
Oh, hell yes.
Do you know what I mean? Like, they tried to change too much too quick.
What was can we get a refresher on the Fallen Ghost? Because I would love a refresher on what was that DLC, right? It was a DLC.
That was the second DLC, yeah.
Yeah. So Fallen Ghost was basically you going back to Bolivia, getting shot down pretty much just after you crossed the border, and then being hunted by a group of mercenaries who were like ex-tier 1 operators.
Okay.
Story sound familiar?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does.
Better.
Except they were after the drugs.
Okay,
Yeah.
so here's my,
That's the difference.
Drugs, tech,
Different.
same thing.
Yeah.
Go on, ITK, go on.
okay, here's my thing, dude. Okay, and so me and Blue Fox, we started off with Wildlands, the Breakfast Club. This is prior to Delta Company. So this was maybe a total of 8 people. How many people do we have in group total, not including Matt, because Matt was more of the community developer for that. Him and Emma.
I need to turn you up a little bit.
Was there 8 of us that was part of Breakfast Club?
Yeah, but so the Breakfast Club started 2 years before release, and there was 8 of us in it.
Yeah, so Breakfast Club was what they consider Delta Company now, except that Delta Company had almost no input for Breakpoint. But here's the thing: is that every game comes down to feedback, right? Like what the gamers want, and they may carbon copy a game here and there, and maybe that's what the feedback was given to them. But the thing with Breakpoint, none of the community gave any kind of feedback for that game. Me and Blue Fox were lucky enough to play the game and give some feedback probably 4 months before release, and there were some changes made. Initially, because we were there, and we told them, that this will not work, and so we gave them feedback. So all these titles that Ubisoft's coming out with, they're getting the wrong feedback. They're not bringing in guys like Brian, guys like Blue Fox, to give them feedback on what needs to be, what the community wants. I preached this in on Twitter and even in our Delta Company channel that they're not getting the proper feedback. And
it's ironic you say that, ITK. It's ironic you say that because I feel like Ubisoft put up this. I think it was probably genuine. Like, I think they did a lot of surveys, I feel like. And I feel like they did more than I've seen. At least I noticed it being like, I feel like they're getting a lot of feedback, or at least they're talking about getting feedback a lot. And I do remember a couple of surveys or something. And it's ironic you say that.
Surveys are different than feedback. Like I said, we were brought in 2 years before Wildlands was even released, a year before it was announced.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not when the game's already out.
Yeah, so the feedback. I mean, even with Breakpoint, they got the feedback from somebody for Breakpoint, not from us. It was a cross between the Division, and they wanted to kind of, I guess, in my eyes, they wanted to bring guys from the Division into Ghost Recon, which that was a bad idea because Division is an RPG and Ghost Recon is a shooter. I don't know where they got the feedback saying, "Hey, let's bring these guys in." So that was not us. I mean,
are you talking about tiered loot?
Yeah, that tiered loot and gear score, all that stuff.
Exactly.
That has never been a part of any Ghost Recon ever. I had brought that up multiple times that the feedback they're getting, I don't know where they're getting it from. Even with Frontline, that was not anything Ghost Recon.
Can I just make a really quick point just to follow that up, because I'm intrigued. Like, I think you're making a really good point, and I have raised this point before, but sometimes it feels like even just look outside the Ghost Recon community and look at some other Ubisoft titles. Like, I started playing Rainbow Six Siege, from day one, and they tried to make out very early on in that game that obviously you had the game is principally 5 versus 5, isn't it? And they tried to make out, they gave you this little side thing that you could do, and they tried to make out to people that they could build on this experience, and the community, when you listen to the community, what they were expecting is if you built on an experience, that was either going to be some kind of add-on or a follow-up game, and it would be the story mode effectively that the game didn't have, because they built this story mode in about the white masks. I don't know if anyone follows Siege or whatever, but that was the initial kind of story, and they left that in with the terrorist hunts, things like that. And then what they actually did is not listen to anybody and then go and make a a PVE against aliens.
Yeah, I was gonna say, don't say it, don't bring it up. Extraction.
That's what I'm asking. Where is that coming from? Because it's not coming from the community.
Do you think they sat down and went, look, we know they want a PvE in Rainbow Six Siege. We know they want terrorists. But do you think they were just too worried to do terror? Do you think? I mean, I don't understand if it is because, I mean, you see feedback regards to games like 6 Days in Fallujah where it got a lot of heat. Like the new version even is getting a lot of heat, which I'm going to be honest with you, I don't understand the heat because war movies are made about that same subject with no one's asking them to be banned or anything like that. So I don't.
Bullet. Hey, to be honest, you're right. They are worried about that because they even delayed. I want to say Wildlands because of that. There was a shooting in France or something. I slightly remember that they delayed it because there was some shootings going around, and in fact, we got invited. We were there in Paris, and we were everybody was kind of looking over the shoulder because there was something that happened.
It wasn't the Paris terrorist attack, was it? In the theater, in the
there was
it that?
No, I think
what year was
it?
That?
The magazine one? Was it not the magazine one?
No, the Charlie Hebdo. I think that was a couple of years before that, wasn't it? Wasn't that Wasn't it? When was the big theater one where the band were playing and lots of people were killed?
Here, I'll look at it.
Was that after? Yeah, in Paris. Yeah.
Yeah, but I know that in 2016, before it was released, they actually delayed it. Something was delayed because of shootings. So Ubisoft is very aware and very conscious of stuff like that. So I could understand that, them veering away from terrorist type stuff. So I could see that. But what my thing is the feedback. Where are they getting this from? I mean, maybe they're not catering to current Ghost Recon players or legacy Ghost Recon players like Blue Fox and I. Maybe they're not catering to us anymore because we're still going to buy the game because, I mean, it's Ghost Recon. But maybe they're trying to bring in more people. I don't know. I
the younger generation.
I think Ubisoft is going away from. I think when you think of old Ubisoft games or whatever, the old Ghost Recons, let's talk about that in particular. I remember hearing about them being about a specific, it was about a culture or something that was happening in the world. And it was more like you felt like it was like a passionate game. Like it was coming into, you're in a real world situation or a relatable, something that actually has happened in the world.
Yeah.
And I think, and I think
set in a scenario where you could believe it was real, whereas with Break Clans they took a jump too far.
Exactly, and I think as a company they went away from that for the fear of backlash, right? And like that was one thing, but I also feel like Ubisoft, if you just don't even look at Ghost Recon, you look at all the other games, they've been on a decrease as far as, I guess, not popularity, like, oh, there's a bunch of people playing it, but just maybe more complaints or the quality of life of the game, whether it's Siege, Assassin's Creed, Ghost Recon, has just gone down. And I think that's because Ubisoft has gone away from things that might be making people mad or whatever it is as far as a story goes. And then
it all comes down to feedback, Brian. Somebody's
and I think
did you also try and go through a phase though where they were basically trying to merge all the different kind of Ubisoft titles into like long term into one big kind of like overall title. Everything started to get
like kind of doing the Ubisoft cinematic universe with their games.
Like the Marvel Cinematic Universe of video games.
It's just Ubisoft. I feel like they're just trying to put out basically something to sell rather than a passionate project about something that happened 10 years ago that they can make a game about. Ghost Recon operators go in to, Afghan, some kind of place that they're not being straight up, this is where it is, but it's something that happened. They're going away from that and just pushing out a game. I've called them, and I'm not trying to crap on them because they have a bunch of great games that I've loved forever, but they're like the McDonald's of game companies right now. They're just pushing out games, and I think more along the lines they saw that Call of Duty Zombies popping off, and I could be wrong about that, but I think it's more like they're like, what do we not have? We don't have a zombie game. Rainbow Six would be a good fit for that, and I think it's more along the line of like, Frontline. What do we got? We got Warzone popping off. They just went free to play a year ago or whatever it was. Let's do that. So I think it's more of that instead of being like, I've thought about this game idea for 10 years now about this crazy, thing that happened that would fit crazily good for Ghost Recon or whatever it is. I mean, you even see that with just the skin cut. Like, you got pink Desert Eagles in Breakpoint. You got, I think I saw a screenshot of a pink ship in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and it just, I'm not against that types of things in games. Like Valorant makes sense, but for a Ghost Recon tactical shooter, it's not even the big deal. But it's just like they're putting in things that don't make sense. And I think the Valhalla pink ship is like the best thing I could think of. That just it just doesn't make sense, and it seems like it seems like, what are they thinking? Yeah, you know what I mean? Where's the feedback?
That Desert Eagle you mentioned, if they'd just done that instead of in like a pink and a yellow, if they'd done that in natural greens and browns and kind of made it look a bit more camouflaged, I reckon the majority of people wouldn't have even batted an eyelid.
Yeah,
but because it was bright pink and it was just like,
it just didn't make sense.
This is meant to be Ghost Recon. This isn't Fortnite. It is, it isn't PUBG.
I think what Brian was just saying there is an interesting point as well, because you talking about Call of Duty, and if you noticed in Modern Warfare, 2019's Modern Warfare, I believe I'm right on this. For the first 3 months, nothing was added into purchasable items that weren't realistic looking. I'm sure it was for 3 months. They didn't add any crazy pink things or, bright blue things. Everything was realistic and
they
tactical.
Stayed with that for a while.
No, they had it in there. It's just that a lot of people had. What is that?
What is that?
That's J-Rock.
Very strange.
But a lot of the weapon colors in Modern Warfare 19 were there. You just didn't see the popularity of it.
Maybe it wasn't that one. Maybe it was. What was the game after? What was the game after that? Was it one of the World War II games, perhaps?
But overall, you're right though. The overall feel of the game was natural shooter. It wasn't pink guns and reload animations with smoke and the craziness. And like Grandpa said, yeah, they probably had it, but the overall feel, like you're probably saying, Bullet, was just that it didn't feel like that. You played on Azure Cave the first 3 months, and it wasn't any. You didn't see that type of things in the game. But I think it eventually came, but. Like what you're saying was, I feel the same way. It didn't seem like they had too many crazy things going on in that kind of game.
It's out of place in Ghost Recon. Some of the wacky outfits, some of the wacky guns, kind of
like the striped shirt.
They set a tone for the game that puts some of the core community off it by doing it. Can we go back to the point you were making earlier, Bullet Catcher, about the frequency of which they release games? Because when you were saying that, it occurred to me that for the first 5 or 6 years of the franchise, they were turning out about a game a year.
They were
maybe not every year, but maybe at least
over 18 months.
At least every 2 years.
Yeah, first one was 2001, and then there was Island Thunder, then GR2, Summit Strike, GRAW 1 and GRAW 2 by 2006.
So every 2 years at least.
I think franchises
in the first 6 years, but of course, games in those days weren't as complex to build.
No, I can remember the SOCOM, and when the second SOCOM came out, it was only about 15 months later, something like that. I think it wasn't too long afterwards, I don't believe.
Yeah, and the trouble they've got is that the financial model that goes around gaming now is not attractive to finance people in a company. And let's face it, the finance people in the company is going to be that taking 5 years to develop a game that might not sell well is a massive risk. So, we saw a bit of that in Breakpoint. So we saw let's try and get it done in 2 years.
Exactly.
We get a return on it quicker, but what a disaster it turned out to be in trying to do that, because they just missed they missed the kind of the heart of the game really when it first released.
Hey,
So
you're right.
stays
You're right,
the
Blue.
same,
So
but they reinvent Ghost Recon quite a lot between each of the releases. If you think about it, it goes through quite a radical change with each generation of the franchise. So the first one was first person only, and you had your squad commands. GR2 brought and Summit Strike brought the third person view in, and slightly less. Graw was a completely different, went to a linear campaign. Future Soldier again completely different. It's almost like it's a completely different gameplay style and gameplay to the game. And then Wildlands changed it again. And Breakpoint's being similar to Wildlands, but so I'd expect the next game would be completely different again as well. But if they can stick to the
I don't think they're going to go back to the linear style anymore because
I hope not.
It's. I mean, you could have a linear style, but have your choice of
linear mission.
Yeah, very very similar. You can still have linear, whereas compared to what everybody and most likely whoever has played it and killed Walker within the first 5 minutes.
I think this goes back to what ITK was talking about a little while ago, in terms of, are Ubisoft listening to their community? Because
who are they listening to?
If you look at what you've just said, Marcus, regards to linear open world, for example, I don't get me wrong. I'm sure there are people that would be quite happy going back to let's call them missions on rails, just to that kind of thing. Right?
Yeah.
There would be some people that would go, look, if you do that and you don't have this big open world, then perhaps we won't have all these bugs and glitches like we get. And I do understand that point, but I do believe that because they brought a lot of new people came in to this franchise on Wildlands, it sold a lot of copies. Those people, I think, are still here. They may not have all bought Breakpoint because they may have, seen the reviews, whatever, or picked it up later, or whatever. But I don't think Breakpoint has sold as many as Wildlands. But I do believe the community in general now, I think overall, and I'm not speaking for the whole community, but overall would want another open world game. And if they suddenly said, if they suddenly dropped a trailer and it wasn't an open world game, I do think most of us would sit here kind of going,
what the hell?
Like,
why? Who are you listening to? I mean,
sorry, Buttercatch. I was just going to say that the strength of open world for Ghost Recon is the open approach you can take to missions.
Yes,
exactly.
And even be some mini open worlds, like 5 or 6 of them to give that area of operations feel to it.
And if you have
the open world tropes of exploring and unlocking and all the
of
rest
course,
of the things.
But still have a linear story though. That's my thing.
It could.
Yeah, still have that linear story where you still have to follow a certain path to get to the end point, because I mean you should not be able to kill Walker in the first 5 minutes.
No,
but
dog, wasn't it, Tommy?
but like
I kept it.
So it should open world's great, explore and do certain things a certain way, but still have that linear where you can't get to Walker until the very end.
I got into Wildlands. I'll be honest. I was, what was it, 16, right? I'm 16 years old at the time. I'm playing GTA like RP, like story mode, just literally exploring everywhere. I go hunting and stuff. And what was missing for me, I just wanted a GTA style game, not like it, but an open world game. But instead of being just a person, I'm a special operator, and there's enemies and all these things that you can set up with your friends or just alone. That's what I looked for, and that's kind of what Breakpoint and Wildlands had, and that's why it's such a great game. The potential insane, and it's just mind-boggling they haven't.
It's always both games are better in co-op.
Exactly. It just the open world's not a bad thing. I think it's just not getting used to the best ability.
I think the open world helps continue to keep people within the game. So, for example, if we talked about missions on rails, for example, missions on rails can work really well. We've seen it in multiple other titles, but does it add the replayability? Because, for example, when I play Breakpoint, and I play Breakpoint a lot, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't really go in and play missions at all.
Here's an
I
idea.
just go around the open world, take bases out. And I think most people that I play with do that. They don't go on and go, let's go and do this mission again. Let's go and do that. They've done them multiple times. And now they just want to go and hit bases in different ways and things like that. If you get rid of the open world and go back to that, but people like me and plenty of other people like me are going to go, oh, there's no replayability for me.
Here's an idea. Here's an idea on that.
I'll move on.
Here's an idea on that. If you naturally you have option A and B between playing open world and story mode. Now, once you complete story mode, then you can go back and replay all missions in the order you so choose, because you can do that even with Call of Duty. You don't have to start from the very beginning. You could start at the very last mission once you complete it.
It's still the same mission. It's exactly the same.
Oh yeah,
That's
it's
my
always
issue
good.
with it.
It's always going to be the same mission. Just a question of which side of the base are you attacking it from, depending on what the base is. Now, naturally, if it's aero testing, there's only two ways you can get in that base. But if it's something like Green Viper, where you have a full 360 advantage to taking it from whatever side you want, then it becomes a different mission each time you attack that base.
You can look at the options. You can go in loud, you can go in quiet, you can go in vehicles, you can parachute in, you can do it at night, you can do it in the day. You don't have those options when you're playing a game with missions on rails. It is what it is. If they choose it's a night mission, it's always night.
So
Metal Gear,
to jump on what Andy's saying, jump on what Andy's saying there, to better illustrate his point. If you take Clean House for Call of Duty,
right,
it doesn't matter how many times you play Clean House, it's always in the dark.
Right.
You can't change what way you enter the house. You've always got to go in the same way. Whereas he's saying with Breakpoint, you can play, there's so many different variations of ways you can replay that game that always keeps it fresh to replay that mission.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because, you play, you play Clean House,
kind of thing.
you play Clean House, and there's not much you can do to change it.
Is it Clean House or Safe? What's the one? I only played it once on Call of Duty.
It's one of the ones where they say ghosts going dark, and then they go into the house, and then they go all the way up to the top and shoot the chick in the attic.
Oh yeah, I played it. Yeah, but as Andy said, you've got to go up that same set of stairs, and the same door's going to open in the same place.
Right.
You can't decide to go in through the top window. Or...
It doesn't take away from the fact that it's a great experience. Like, I'm not knocking it. It's a great. I mean, I think a lot of people played that and went, "Wow, this is like probably one of the first times that you actually feel like you're playing as a tier 1 operator." Yeah. So I think they nailed the aesthetic. They nailed how it was. It wasn't all big explosions like you tend to get in Call of Duty.
Michael Bay.
Yeah, exactly. But I do want to come back because we're moving further away from it. I want to come back to ITK's point from 10 minutes or 15 minutes ago. you raised a good point that when you were talking about community again, and are they listening to the community and things like that, it always makes me think that why is it, when I mentioned about Rainbow Six and what they've done regards to, here we go, here's the PvE you wanted, and here's aliens, and the community were like, oh, and there's that kind of, well, we didn't want that. Can you imagine, right? So today, I believe it was today, I only saw it today, they dropped the logo for this year's Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Okay, so we haven't had a trailer, anything like that. Can you imagine if, let's say, next Friday, the trailer drops, and the trailer is, there's your characters from 2019's Modern Warfare, and they're halo jumping out of a C-130, and they land down on the ground, and everyone's like, oh, this is looking great. Look how realistic this is. And when they hit the ground, there's aliens and stuff everywhere, and they're like, "This is where we." That game would absolutely bomb. It would bomb. Yes. It would get so much, but yet Ubisoft seemed to be like, "No, that's fine. We'll do that."
It's because they're just pushing it out. They're just pushing it out and pushing it out. They're trying to sell it.
I'm telling
if
you,
I may,
every business does this, man. Every business does this. There's a feedback. There's somebody is giving them this information. They're getting it from somewhere. and they obviously like what you pointed out. That's not coming from a Rainbow Six Siege player. Maybe they're trying to expand from that. I don't know, but Frontline was not anything any Ghost Recon fan ever asked for. Not even close. I mean,
but I disagree. I disagree with that a little bit.
Can I jump in quickly on that as well?
Yeah.
So I remember, but just at the end of the first year after Wildlands released, I remember watching loads and loads of like YouTube videos and stuff, and who's I watching it? I can't remember who I was watching at the time. I think it was Dark Dally. But I remember him having regular conversations and people suggesting that the next, Wildlands should get a battle royale, or the next game when Breakpoint was first talked about, they're like, "Oh, it should be a battle royale. We really want a battle royale."
There was a lot of voices saying, "Give us."
And the problem is, I think that Ubisoft have picked up on that and they went, "Right, you want a battle royale?" Because if you look at the rough timeline for when they started Frontline to now, it works at about the same time as everybody suddenly gone, "We need a battle royale." And what they've done is, they've built the battle royale, and unfortunately, we've all moved on for it now. So when they dropped it at the time, and on the anniversary, and everybody's like, "Who asked for this?" There was a group of fan base asking for it.
I think people I think Battle Royale. I think people would have tried it still. I don't think it's completely out of the question, but I would say general, it wasn't asked for. I just think once again though, Breakpoint was disliked, at least in PvP, for the people that did play it, because of how quick it was and the way you could circle around whatever, A to Z. But it was, I guess, I don't know how you guys felt. I was shocked when they came out with a Battle Royale not in Breakpoint, because in my opinion, Breakpoint is too quick as far as for the PvP side, too quick to be tactical and, Rainbow Six Siege, whatever you wanted it to be. It's too quick for that. But it's not too quick for a Battle Royale. And you have this open map and all these things. I just was I don't know if you guys weren't, or it's just like whatever. I just thought Breakpoint would have been a perfect. And then you got what? Moa Island? Was that what it is? It's like a open island still. And they added mercenaries to Wildlands. I was kind of shocked. And I thought Breakpoint messed up the PvP as far as the movement, where people hated it. But I was like, it would fit great for, a Battle Royale because of how quick it is. But then they came out with Frontline, and it's not even in third person. It was just a shock. It was really just a shock.
Brian, can I ask you a question? Just quickly before we carry on. So, obviously, you being a massive Breakpoint PvP player, when Frontline dropped, or the announcement dropped for Frontline, was your first reaction? What I want to know what your first reaction was, and was one of your reactions, so this is why they haven't updated the PvP on Breakpoint for 18 months?
That was what I was going to answer with. Yeah, I was like, so this is what they wasted. That was my candid thought. What they wasted their time on, rather than putting it in the game that they, in my opinion, really let down. And so, there was mostly, I was like, this is just, wow. I can't believe this is what they were spending their time on. So that's what I thought. But then I also was like, you know what? It's something PvP. I'm going to try it. But when you saw more, and when I looked at the beta videos, and I actually got a video taken down because of that, it just didn't look, like I'll try it. It could get improved from what we see, but it just wasn't what the PvP community even really wanted, like at all. So it was disappointment. Also, it was like, great, there's something PvP coming, but it was mostly disappointment. I gotta say, I mean, it just didn't. If it was in third person, I'll be honest, I would probably be more hyped. But just from what we've seen, the little bits what we've seen, and they're really, they don't want anyone seeing it. It seems like, that's what I don't get either. I'll be quick too. But it just seems like, why wouldn't they want people to see the beta and them to be, it's like they don't want to be told the idea sucks before they sell it. It seems, and maybe it's because, the whole business side, it's like too much money's already spent. But it seems like you would want that feedback from live viewers and players. But I digress. What are you gonna do?
I think they
If I may add a comment to that.
before they get feedback. They go far too. They did with Breakpoint's a classic example of that. They'd gone so far down the development of it. I mean, they didn't get feedback until they announced it.
Yeah, exactly, and it's too late by then.
And Frontline, you can see Frontline is really far advanced in its development cycle. They were ready to do a technical test and open alpha, weren't they?
Yeah, exactly.
Of thousands and thousands of players, and they've delayed it. I don't know what they're doing with it now, but obviously the reception was pretty predictable.
I have a quick question. 30 seconds to ask. Do you think they're spending time adding a third person to it, or no? Or do you think it's just going to be first person?
For me, they have to add third person.
Well,
feedback. It's had too much feedback to say.
Okay,
if this needs to be third person, and you have to admit, like, has anyone here played it? 'Cause I've played it. Has anyone else played it?
No.
I think what they're doing is they're really pumping up the Defiant one.
Oh, see, I think I just can't see that game doing it.
I could tell you in reference before we go any further. Today's Twitter. Who's joining us today for another inside session introducing new mode, Team Deathmatch. Please note that this week's session will see your previous in-game settings reset, and that's from XDefiant today at 9:51 this morning Eastern Time.
So they're doing a wipe.
I have a quick question then.
They're not wiping. They're doing trials.
Sandy, before you jump in, I think Stabby's been trying to say something for the last couple of minutes, and
sometimes we need someone to say that. No worries.
Yeah. Go ahead with your comment, dude. If you're listening.
No, you're good. Just on the comment where he said that like they didn't get feedback until they had already announced it. It's like they're too busy chasing the trends.
Yep.
They're chasing it instead of creating the path forward.
Yep. McDonald's.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but where's the Happy Meal?
There's no Happy Meal. At least you can get a Happy Meal and be a little bit happy about it.
Well, you'll get the Happy Meal, but there's a lot left to be desired.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
Yeah, that's not enough fries.
Now, the weird thing is, yesterday's comment, it said, remember that now you can invite up to 5 friends to join you in the insider sessions. Check your email for more information. So they're working more or less on the XDefiant now.
I haven't even looked at that game.
I just happened to see the Twitter postings, within the past couple days, and didn't think nothing of it until, we start talking about it today. And I'm like, wait a minute, I remember seeing these.
Yeah,
so let's ask, as generally everyone in here right now, so just for a quick opinion. So let's say we get a post in 2 weeks' time that said, right, Frontline is coming, it's free, and it's going to be available on all platforms in, I don't know, end of May. Okay? But
I'll try it.
It's exactly what you were getting when you saw the trailer. We haven't changed any of it. We're not going to work on it anymore. Banged. How do you think it will have a community? Do you think people might stick with it? I know it's hard to say if you haven't played it. Do you think they have to go back and make changes for it to try and actually at least appeal to the current Ghost Recon community?
It'll have 200 viewers on Twitch, and then by a month or two, it'll be down to 30 to 5 because it's a rehash. What we saw was a rehash of Warzone. Not exactly. I think we did see more than one mode too. But in my opinion, and keeping it short, I think it'll die out very quickly.
Yeah, but it's free, so even the new person.
It's community always.
It's going to be somebody there because it's a free game. You can always go in there and get it. Now, true enough, if they start maxing out the storage size, a lot of people are cutting Warzone out because of that.
When I made a video about the future of Ghost Recon, I had some people comment in my. I presume they were joking, but they might not have been. I literally had some people comment and say, Bullet Catcher, just to let you know, if you start covering Frontline, I'll unsubscribe.
Oh my God. You see what I mean? Like, just because it has a community, does that mean it's doing good? No. I don't see that game thriving at all the way we saw it. At all. Sadly. I wanted
most of the people that you're going to have in that community is just people that are following the Ghost Recon name.
Yeah, there's two big things.
Yep.
There's two big things for me that I think when it comes to frontline. One, I was going to actually go back to Andy and Brian about this. So we were talking about first and third person. What if they are reworking it and they gave you the option to do both?
To do both.
You really confused me there. I just have to clear something up, by the way. When you turned around and said, I want to talk about two big things, so I want to go back to Andy and Brian, I was like, hang on a minute.
What
are you talking about? Whoa, calm down.
Yeah, sorry.
Super People, Super People is a battle royale game that has third person and first person. The way it works, you play first person, you only have first person in the game mode you're playing, the battle royale. In third person, you toggle that on. You can switch between third person and first person because people can argue, hey, you third person, you could see more. But if it has both, 100%, I'm cool with that. I'll be playing in third person, but you guys do whatever. You know what I mean?
The next part to that was
the games used to do it. So up until Future Soldier was the first, it didn't allow a first person mode.
I will say real quick, the third person games that make it to where you can only aim in first person doesn't do it for me. Ghost Recon does a great job of allowing you to shoot in third person without even using the sight. Yes, that is a big. Gears of Wars is the only other game right now I can think of, and it just looks cool, doesn't it? It looks cool.
SOCOM did that too, though.
SOCOM too, but that's like SOCOM and Ghost Recon are like brother and sister, or brother and brother, you know.
I was just like remember the Rainbow Six Vegas series too. You had that ability.
Yep.
Oh my God, you just brought up such a good point because this is what the Rainbow Six community I think really wanted to see. With going back to my previous point, Rainbow Six Siege, but in a Vegas setting, like Rainbow Six Vegas, with the rappelling up buildings, using all of the tactical gear that you've got.
They're not going to do that.
But in that kind of set. But that would have been, my God, they would have brought so many new people to that game. I would have played that game non-stop if they'd have given us something like that.
It goes down to feedback, man.
Well, and political, I think now bringing in Vegas into some kind of shooter game. I think Ubisoft wouldn't be the company to do that, you know. But I think those kind of games are what actually make games good. I mean, as far as it being something realistic, I mean, you play Valorant, you're not playing Valorant to, you know, go be like to be in a realistic environment, but for these types of games, it would work. I just don't think they have the balls to do it, you know what I mean, anymore, at least.
Does anyone remember about 5 or 6 years ago when I can't remember which Call of Duty game it was, but it came out and there was a bit of controversy and it popped up on, I believe it was on, I'm sure it even got featured like on some news channels. And it wasn't huge. It didn't go on for weeks, but it was just brief. And it was about Call of Duty using white phosphorus. And the fact that it was... That. Do you remember this story? It's about, I think it was about 6 years-ish. It could be a bit more, it could be a bit less. And what I loved was that I think, you know, I think the world has changed quite a bit since then, where I think... they think all you have to do now is go, I don't like this, and it gets cancelled. But one thing that I will say for Call of Duty, they literally, I love the fact that they just said nothing and they never took it out, as if to go, because we don't care. We're keeping it in.
Wasn't that Modern Warfare 3?
Was it that long ago? I'm sure. I thought it was a lot closer. When was Modern Warfare 3?
I'm looking it up right now.
9 years ago, 10 years ago. When was
that? Also had the bombings in Paris as well. That was very controversial.
And of course, and Modern Warfare 3 also had bombings in London as well, didn't it?
It had the one. It had the one scene,
and it was on the subway as well, wasn't it?
It had the one scene where the bomb, the bomb truck blew up in Paris, in Modern Warfare 3.
Call of Duty, though, we're talking about a game company.
Shock value, though.
They remember No Russian, you know?
Yeah.
I don't think white phosphorus is. They don't give a crap about what if white phosphorus I don't think they give a crap about that. Like, it shows. They're like, this isn't the game.
I mean, when I was talking about 6 Days in Fallujah earlier, which is personally a game I'm actually really looking forward to.
It's not out, right?
No,
I don't want to play
no,
it.
December it's out.
Cannot wait for that game.
No, I can't wait either. It's a fascinating story, and it's the second battle of Fallujah as well, which I think is not that one was more intense than the other, but if from the soldier's point of view, I've read a lot of books about it. It seems to be it was the bigger of the two. There were more forces involved as well. I think that was a UK-US coalition on that occasion. I think it's going to be a great game. I truly hope it's going to be a great game, and I didn't mind that they'd said we're going to take another year, because it's like, okay, get it right. I don't have an issue with that. Get it right, no problem. But the controversy surrounding that, and we have to be careful because of YouTube and all the rest of it. I'm not gonna use the exact words here, but I think people will get it. It was a specific religion, and they said it was that specific religion. It was basically a guide to murdering those types of people.
Okay.
But what I don't understand is that 2019's Modern Warfare, a lot of the missions were set with the same people of the same religion, and no one really batted an eyelid over that aspect.
Here's even something even worse. But hang on, before you even go on your question, what about the very first Call of Duty? That was the Russians and the Germans. Was that the one where you get off on the ship and it's in Stalingrad, right there in Stalingrad? Yeah.
That's right. That's the one where you get off the ship. You only have like a rifle or a magazine, right?
Yeah, that's Stalingrad. Remember, it's enemy at the gates. It started out just like the movie.
Exactly. Ed Harris. Yep.
Okay. Quick shout out, real quick, Bullet, to the Battle of Fallujah. That's Amper Camper. He's the community developer for them, and he was a Ghost Recon, he was a part of Breakfast Club there at the inn. He was part of Breakfast Club. Came in late, but he's the community developer for that game now.
Well, respect to him then, because I do believe that they're going out of their way to make what I hope looks to be something quite special as well. I think there'll be a lot of people within the Ghost Recon community, especially with a lot of milsim and people that do want to play this game in that kind of tactical, realistic route. Not everyone, but a lot of people do. I think they'll be really interested in that game. I can't wait to play it. I think it's. I'm looking forward to seeing more of it.
I think a lot of people want to play, and maybe I'm wrong. I think a lot of people want to play though a war game that is based on the Afghanistan war. I mean, I think other than Call of Duty, is there other games that really have put that out there? I mean, I don't know if it's too of a hot topic to get on, but I think a lot of people are excited because of even the war setting. I think people, you see Call of Duty do World War II. I think there's a lot of value in going back to, actual, like we talked about, actual things that happen actually get people excited about the game.
Yeah, but we all know that
Brian, quick.
Go ahead, Sandy.
So I was going to say, Brian, is obviously for the stuff that we've done for the community, as you were saying, Afghan's a massive one. You know what I mean? That was miles ahead of everyone else. Because it's still in the mind, it's still fresh, it's still there's stories there that can still be explored, and I think certain times you look at certain genres and there is ones that are overplayed. Vietnam's usually overplayed. World War II's overplayed. We want different sandboxes.
It's almost like you're almost learning stuff about the war. I mean, people playing Call of Duty, they probably watch war movies. They probably learn about historic war fights, and it's kind of like going back and obviously you're not really learning stuff, but sometimes some games get it down to where you actually get the feel of how it actually was, and in some ways it respects sometimes some of the shit more, and you actually get a sense of how it is.
Brian, you just made such an excellent point there, because how many people who didn't care at all, and I'm going back away here, but who didn't care at all about World War II or history, played the first Medal of Honor game and suddenly started caring about World War II and its history.
Or watched Saving Private Ryan and started asking their grandpa more about, the
J-Rock, could you mute?
Yeah, sorry, I'll say it.
Well, you guys need to go play Future Soldier, because that's 100% U.S. versus Russia.
Yeah, I mean, but like Andy,
I was gonna say, the last Medal of Honor was set in
Afghan.
That was a great game. Warfighter was so good.
That was set in Afghan, and if you can remember, there's one bit where you've got to take out the.
Was that with Voodoo?
Is it the mortar teams or something like that? And
they were based on real missions as well.
The sun glare was that bad you could hardly see through your scope.
Yeah, I remember
How did that game get canceled? I played that game before Wildlands. I mean, that game was awesome. How's Medal of Honor still not going after that game?
It's not my age. There is a video on YouTube. That's the rise and fall of Medal of Honor. But
they got one for SOCOM too.
I do believe that on the last Medal of Honor, you also had the ability to play like a Taliban character.
Like kind of like squad where you're on the insurgent.
Yeah, you could. Yeah. The multiplayer, I believe you definitely could play as.
I think that upset a few people.
It did. I remember a few games journalists covering that at the time.
You can do the same on Sandstorm.
Yes.
Yep. On Sandstorm.
You could be an insurgency or whatever. And
do you think, Tonka, it was due to how realistic they were trying to go on Warfighter in terms of this? These are your American soldiers that you're playing this campaign with, and we're going to get this right, and we're going to get it accurate, and then you're putting those accurate assets into multiplayer, and then during the middle of a war, effectively, because it was raging full on at that point, then saying, now go shoot them in multiplayer. And I just think it didn't. The campaign I thought was great. I really enjoyed it, but I remember people discussing that at the time, and it did put people off, I think.
Yes.
I mean, even if you
longer.
You see, there's also like that for like Fallujah, because there's been a lot about that as well, of all the other stuff, all the things that went on there.
Now, okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
But then, I don't know. I'm just hoping that if, like, when Fallujah does come out, that will be if they do a multiplayer, and that won't be like Sandstorm, where you've got to have 8. You could play with 3 or 4 of your mates, and not like a whole load. But I think that's going to be a bit, right. I think it might be a bit realistic. That's the problem.
I haven't actually heard anything on multiplayer for that game. I'm not 100% sure.
Haven't heard anything either.
Is it even got a multiplayer? I don't know, actually. I've no idea.
Been a few, there was a video on YouTube about it.
But
I don't know if that was like multiplayer, but they were saying like with your squad, and you can control your squad.
Most games should have a PvP.
But they were saying it is going to be quite realistic. Like, you go in the building and it's dark in the building, and you can't see who's in the room because you're coming out from like the sunlight, and then you've also got the reverse of you coming out from a dark room out into like the bright sun. So that would be like on Warfighter, where you're trying to shoot,
and you can't see.
Yeah, you can't see because the light's burning. So they did say that it's going to be quite realistic in like that, but I don't know what else is going on. But there was a lot of controversy over it.
And if anyone wants an in-depth on that, read the book House to House. It's amazing.
Now, the weird thing about it is, even back in the SOCOM days, if anyone has played Desert Glory, What was your enemies dressed as?
I did not play that.
Yeah.
What were they dressed as? I want to know. I didn't play it.
They had the turbans and everything.
Okay, so yeah, they were wearing things basically that people, nowadays get a little upset about, and game developers aren't sometimes willing to do, to do that in the game.
You mean the PC bullshit?
Yeah, now it's PC versus what was.
PC,
Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of that that's crept in. I think that a lot of people, they don't necessarily always agree with it. I think they're just too scared of backlash. They're worried about backlash. Whereas I think some bigger companies like Call of Duty, they've had some backlash before and they've just gone whatever because the game and the community is so big. I want to get back to I want to get back onto Ghost Recon for a second. And what I was talking about right at the very, very beginning when we started this podcast, and that is obviously we've kind of discussed where we think the franchise is. What's everyone's opinions on this possible sale of Ubisoft? Because I don't get me wrong, it's a difficult one to comment on when we don't know exactly what's going on, but there's so many rumors now that you do start to think, they're talking about, I think, BlackRock, and there's other people saying that they're interested. You get the usual, someone would say, well, Microsoft might buy it, or Sony might buy it, or someone else might buy it.
Like the Xbox takeover, you mean?
Well, I would not like to see either Microsoft or Sony buy Ubisoft. I personally would not, because otherwise we're going down a road where those two will buy up eventually everyone. And I don't think that's good. I really don't think that's good for gaming personally. The two leaders will just dominate everybody, and no one else is ever going to. It's going to be harder for other companies to start up without being swallowed up straight away. I don't want to see that. And also, if the rumors are true for things like, for example, if this SOCOM game has been in development for 5 years, which is all the rumors are saying it has been, by Guerrilla Games, and they make good games, to be fair, would Sony... let's say Sony bought it, would they really want a SOCOM game suddenly competing with a Ghost Recon game on the same exclusive platform? I think they'd go, no, we want SOCOM to succeed. We've put 5 years into this game, or an X amount of dollars into this game. I think they just bin Ghost Recon off.
Yeah,
go, they're going to compete with each other.
Yeah, and they don't want that.
Sony acquiring that, I don't see it happening, but what happens if Microsoft says, Sony says, fuck you, we're taking Ghost Recon, we're making it exclusive to our console. For example, when Activision acquired Call of Duty, I knew that wasn't going to happen because Call of Duty is such a massive franchise that they would just lose so much money by making it an Xbox exclusive. But
someone made a really good video on YouTube, and I forget who that was when the merger came up, and they'd done all the mathematics. I wish I remembered who it was. And it was really fascinating because they showed the number of players, and they didn't go by the newest generation of consoles, because obviously both of them are nigh on impossible to find still. So people can't buy them in the numbers they want to. So they went by the last gen, which most people, the majority of people, are still using because they can't get the current gen. So they went simply by the PlayStation and Xbox's previous consoles, and sales wise, and numbers of people on there, and they basically worked out for the amount of money that Microsoft had purchased it for, if they had made it exclusive solely for the numbers, and I can't remember the console numbers, it was 40 something million, I think, people that were playing on that console. And there was I think PlayStation 4 had sold 120 something million. And they said they'd literally be cutting off their own balls, basically. They would literally be, they said it was literally impossible for it to be profitable literally at the price they paid for it. It would be impossible. And that's probably the situation. They probably thought, is it doable? I bet they did the maths and went, can we do it exclusive? And when they looked at it and went, Jesus, we can't lose this amount of money. Because I'm pretty sure that they got from Activision themselves, how much do you make from Sony players? And when they were given the numbers, they were like, oh my God, there's no way we're cutting them off.
Yeah,
they're not going to cut.
To Ubisoft being up for sale.
Yeah, go for it.
You're going to. So there's a couple of clues, I think, in the background context for it. One is if you think of the Guillemot brothers and how old they are in terms of Yves Guillemot now. He's older than me, so he must be at that point where he wants to offload the responsibility of a CEO anyway. So it makes sense for him to try and sell it or shift it on to someone else. If you look at what's happening, so the last time a hostile takeover was when Vivendi tried it. Funny enough, around about the time of Wildlands, and the share price shot up to almost twice what it was. So it's gone up a bit recently, but it would suggest that it's a non-hostile takeover, which means that Ubisoft are in negotiation with someone. This is just my own guesswork, of course. It's not any insight.
Do we know who?
Someone's going to do intelligence. Don't know who it would be. It's possibly one of the big players. Is it a threat to Ghost Recon?
Right. Going back to the Ubisoft,
so it would be. Ghost Recon would have to survive that new company, the new whoever's in control. If it does happen, whoever's in control is going to be looking at the catalogue of games and maybe making some changes. It could be good news for Ghost Recon, but
because you're not going to buy it.
That might be for better.
You're right.
Yeah. Do we know who the businesses are? Because my opinion is I think everyone's opinion. It obviously depends on who buys Ubisoft. Because I was thinking, are people actually going to buy Ubisoft? But exactly, I think. And what do we know about these businesses? Because my point is, if a smaller company takes Ghost Recon or buys Ubisoft, or not, you can't be small and buy Ubisoft, but a company that has like the small company values where they seem to be more passionate about games, whatever it is, I think that's obviously going to be a good thing for Ghost Recon because it means they probably are more interested in like all that Ghost Recon has to offer as a tactical shooter versus like, honestly, Ubisoft has just been going Tom Clancy, Ghost Recon, boom, sell. Like, you know what I mean? So, but what are the companies looking like? Are there any smaller companies trying to buy Ubisoft that seem to be more of a passionate group of people?
Here's the thing with Ubisoft, dude, and something that
Hello? We've lost you.
Yeah, we got.
Hello? Can I jump in there quickly then? Just because.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead while he's not here.
I was thinking there as you were talking about. What if we're looking at this? What about looking at this in a different way? What if it is a takeover, but once the takeover happens, they actually split the assets down and sell them off individually? Would Ghost Recon be sold as part of the overall Tom Clancy franchise, or would they split the franchises down, the whole TC franchise down separately?
That's a good question. Is it Tom Clancy Ghost Recon for another company, but then? Well, yeah, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. That's interesting.
And then every person has to ask themselves this question: what made you fall in love with Ghost Recon from the start?
It's because Ghost Recon.
Because one developer's view or their vision doesn't necessarily replicate or simulate another's. So, when it comes down to it, you really have to ask yourself that core question: what made me fall in love with Ghost Recon from the start? The mechanics? What about the mechanics? The maps? What about the maps? The gameplay? What about the gameplay?
Let me pose this to you. Let's say Microsoft buys out Ubisoft, right?
Oh God!
And it looks at everything it's got, and it goes, you know what? We're going to keep Just Dance. We're going to keep this. We're going to keep that. But we're going to liquidate the rest. We're going to sell off other franchises. We're going to sell the whole Tom Clancy franchise.
That could be great.
And then somebody like Rockstar comes in, right? Let's take
no
Rockstar
way, no shot.
You think?
Okay. I'm going with you. I'm going with you. I'm going with you on the journey.
Right?
Yeah. Okay. Got you.
So you get somebody like Rockstar then comes in and takes Ghost Recon.
As long as it's not Konami.
Yeah, it takes the Ghost Recon franchise, and it builds an open world, and it gives us, it gives us all the technical stuff we want. Would we, is that the type of way that maybe some people would see it being better?
Yeah,
where,
I think at this point it's like a better game equals better experience. I don't care what dev it is. Just don't make it worse than Ubisoft. I think Ubisoft has made it to where if any dev does anything a little better or seems to be doing anything a little better, it's gonna be a plus. There's no way it would be a negative. You know what I mean?
Here's
depends on the company.
Before my headset dies again, and I've got to go. I was pointing out something earlier. So, me and Blue Fox have met the actual developers for the last 3 Ghost Recons, and there's one thing that I know that they do at Ubisoft, and this has always been part of Ubisoft, is that they get the freedom of what vision they see the game. Okay, so they get the freedom of what. So, like I said, Blue Fox and I both met the creative director. Like, he's a good friend of ours.
Yeah, they're allowed. So Yves Gilmer allows them freedom of expression, doesn't
he? They exactly. They allow them to see what they want the end game to be. Okay, so we know that Eric was like, okay, this is how I want the game to be. Okay. Now, changes that were made outside of that probably has no control. As far as like the RPG stuff, I mean,
definitely the editorial control has definitely started to creep in. I think in between Wildlands and Breakpoint, something changed in Ubisoft, and the editorial control started forcing, I think, and influencing the different franchises to use what was successful in another franchise.
Yep,
exactly. Because
that's the culture Ubisoft had. I feel like. Sorry.
Yeah, and they admitted it. So in the investors' call after Breakpoint launched and the share price dipped by about 20%, they were forced to delay the catalogue they had at the time. Of course, I mean they're still feeling the ramifications of that. Breakpoint really hurt the company, and they almost said that they lacked differentiation between the games. They said we recognise that we've made them all too similar.
Yeah, they had the developers, the main guys, creative directors. They had the right idea. Eric has the right idea, but changes were made outside after the point. I mean, like I said, we were lucky enough to play it prior, and there was some minor changes made because we told him, "Hey, this probably won't work, Eric," or the team.
Yeah.
And they were making changes on site at the time.
I think they'd realised, they'd realised at that point that they'd gone wrong.
Yeah, because Eric even said that. He goes, "You know what? I thought I saw that. You remember that, Eric?"
I think people were genuinely, the community, and from reading a lot of people's feedback, especially when Frontline dropped, when they said there was going to be this reveal, and I think a lot of people thought Breakpoint was going to be coming towards its end soon, and I think a lot of people genuinely thought we were about to get a reveal for a brand new PvE game. Obviously, we knew otherwise, but that it was, the community didn't really know that. And I think a lot of the community thought maybe that because Breakpoint was not a particularly big financial success, would they kind of pull the plug on Ghost Recon? I think a lot of people genuinely thought they might do because of the sales figures. And that would have been, I think that would have really irritated a lot of people, because when it comes down to it, people are saying, but Wildlands was a success, and all you really needed to do was to give us a similar experience, and you would have had a winner. They did.
That was what they were trying to do, and I'm telling you, man, the creative director worked on Future Soldier, Wildlands, and Breakpoint, so his vision was the same across the board. But something changed that the higher ups wanted to say, "Hey, we're probably going to make more money and probably sell more copies if we do this." So that's my point, is that there's if another and we're talking about other companies taking over and blah 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 this and that. Ubisoft has always been that company that lets their team express themselves as far as the game, and they did, and they have, but something changed where Breakpoint they say, hey, you know what, we might sell more copies if you decide to put in maybe RPG elements.
Fire that person.
Yeah, but
you did, didn't they?
But
find that man. Oh, they did.
That's what I'm saying. Is that that's the one thing about Ubisoft that I've learned that from visiting there and knowing the team, the dev team, and the comm team. Something I've learned from them is that Ubisoft has always given them the opportunity to express themselves within the game. Let them. There's the developers when they see something and that's how they want the game to be. Ubisoft
The thing is as well. I think there are other fundamental flaws within Break. I love Breakpoint, but I love it to the point where I can quite openly discuss its main issues, and I think it's important that we do discuss them. But I think personally, one of the biggest issues for me, if I play Wildlands for 2 hours and turn it off and then play Breakpoint for 2 hours, the fundamental difference for me that I personally dislike about Breakpoint is that the world feels dead.
Yes, thank you for saying it. Yes, believe
the world
me,
is dead.
I remember kids playing. Kids were playing. They had and Wildlands had life. Breakpoint had that opportunity. People will argue, oh, it's just the theme of the game, but I think, okay, well then you got the theme wrong, or something. You should have changed that.
The problem is with that the argument almost for that doesn't really hold up for a so-called live service game, because if you can beat the boss in 5 minutes, then effectively your story is ended. That part of the story is ended, and the island was supposedly kind of freed up from the bad guys as such. They could have then added more NPCs in and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
To me, and it has nothing to do with, and I totally understand and I agree with everything you just said a minute ago, ITK. I totally agree with everything you just said, but for me, yes, gear score, raids, all RPG elements, all that kind of stuff was a huge issue with a lot of people. But I just don't think maybe they've thought about things like the world feeling empty. We were used to Wildlands. We were used to, having to look when you cross the road because you could get run over and things like that, and just people being around and mission failure by running over a civilian.
Or the Unidad.
You already shot a couple of them.
The extra harsh force. I think also on top of the life part of, games, I think, and it's what I'm about to say is probably based on performance and technology issues, but I think a lot of games would be a lot more popular, or the missions, if they were indoor missions, I feel or where you have to breach into somewhere, or having explorable buildings, or more of just even piggybacking off of that, like how Bolivia had urban life where they at least had villages and stuff. That's what makes games replayable. And GTA, you're literally in LA. I live near LA. I tell my girlfriend all the time, I drive by here in GTA. You know what I mean? And it's that's, and it doesn't even have to be a real place, but having life injected into a game is what makes it replayable and so much fun. And it just didn't feel, like you said, Bull, it just didn't feel that way in Breakpoint. So it was just a depressing vibe. You know what I mean? And if you're playing solo, goddamn, you know what I mean? I played solo.
One of the things that is annoying though.
One of the things that people liked it.
Rebels was my favorite thing. Sorry, because
not only was the world lifeless, Nomad was lifeless.
I want
to go back to when the comment was about Rockstar picking up on the game. I've been trying to get this in. Imagine now if they decide to pick it up and they reveal a trailer. The trailer has to be the exact game.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
okay, now to jump.
You'd be 10 years older.
No, I'm just saying it would have to be, if they said that you are immersive, it better be immersive.
Immersive. And that's what
If it
Breakpoint
says
gave us.
if it says you're being hunted, if you're being hunted, that means you better have Unidad chasing your ass across the entire map.
That's how Breakpoint felt. You know, I gotta say, let's give a hands out though to Breakpoint's trailer team. The fact that like they made it, what was it? It was Nomad running through the woods, falling down the mountainside, he's getting shot at and chased, and then you play Breakpoint. I didn't get followed. I didn't get, Unidad was scary. I didn't have any scary encounters where I want to get chased through the jungle. I want to feel like Elden Ring is a perfect example of showing that you will, if you keep dying, it doesn't mean like sometimes people are just going to give it up, but a lot of people will grind it and try and get better. And in Breakpoint could have that. And if I was getting chased through the jungle, like in the trailer, it would be amazing, but it just didn't have that dangerous force of hostile enemy presence. As
tell you what they didn't put in the goddamn trailer. They made sure they didn't put Nomad's poxy grunt in there. They made sure when he was going down the hill in the trailer that he wasn't.
Yeah, true. I also think drones were a big problem with the game. I also think drones were like, I don't know how you guys felt about that. When I saw Ghost Recon Breakpoint was going to have drones instead of like playing fighting against Sicario, I would have loved to play like against 7 different types of tiered enemy groups and bases rather than fight a drone.
I mean, I could see maybe a drone here and there.
Yeah, but yeah, it shouldn't be. It once again, it seemed like a shortcut to not bringing life to the game. Let's make a robot, and maybe it also fit in with a theme, but a tank crew that you kill or something instead of just a tank boss would make the game a lot more fun for me too. Yeah, or for me and for a lot of players.
Speaking of which, one that someone mentioned was that like we played Battlefield 1, like the very first mission of Battlefield 1.
Is that the one where you can parachute 100 times while in flight?
No, the very first mission of Battlefield 1, the one where like you like this says you like what you're about to see is like a representation of combat of World War I. You're not expected to survive. Someone said like, what if you were like playing as a ghost, and like it was kind of like that. You're like in 6 of 4 or 8, wherever they were, and like every time you die, you switch to a new ghost, and like eventually goes on the list. So you go like down to the 4 you play.
But I like Nomad and John Barenthal. I also have to say they totally just flopped with him. But I like having a character to grab onto. But it is a cool idea. I will give it that. But at the same time, imagine playing John Barenthal as Walker or having like Nomad's not a bad character, and I like Nomad. They kind of just didn't give him life in this game as well as anyone. But I like having a character, but I do think that's a great idea, honestly. Because
the one thing I would say about the
you'd be able to have a lot of enemies that give a lot of damage. You'd have the incentive of making the game harder because you're not. If you die, a new soldier, a new ghost is there. But I like games that are harder.
At the start of the game, it's like the desperation of it. It's like, oh, these guys are like tier 1, that's the best, and they just get slaughtered, and like no matter what you do, it's like you either like fight to the end or you just run out of ammo and you're like, well, fuck,
I'm dead. Yeah.
For me, there's another aspect to this that really, really got me with this. The premise was that you're hunted, and on the betas, and Alan, that might be able to back me up and like might be able to remember this, but on the betas, when you initially crashed, I remember there being a lot more Sentinel, like physically close to you, hunting you, and them actually chatting about like, they were a lot closer. There were 5 or 6 of them.
Oh my God, there was a lot. No, there was a lot. Yeah. Yeah. When they kill Walker.
I didn't get to play the beta.
But when the game released, like after that first 15 minutes, once you get to Erewhon, all the characters became security guards. All the enemy were just security guards.
I didn't notice that. Really?
Yeah.
That's the way I see it.
Exactly how it went down.
Yeah.
When I look at it now, when I play it now, they're always in the same really static locations. They're never doing anything offensive. They're not like you would think, after maybe, especially after killing Walker, you would think that they would go on the offensive at some point to try and start really hunting you down, and they never do.
But in the game, it's like they have no idea that Walker's dead.
Yeah.
Other than the announcement from Stone, there's really no our major military leader just died.
Yeah, the reason why we're here is dead.
I probably recommend anyone kill Walker as soon as you can, so you can avoid the Walker mission.
Someone
that mission also sucked.
Point. So Azrael drones. So we know that they have the Stolas, whatever the fuck it's called, with the scout class.
Yeah.
Why are they not using that instead of the Azraels? I'd rather have oh wait, what's that? It's a thermal signature. Oh wait, nuke it. You're sending up these things that will very, very clearly give you a air superiority. Oh wait, so we could say imagine if they had those things from the beginning. The Outcast base on whatever island it is, and that would be gone. Well. And they fly over it all the time.
Even with Azrael, there's something really there's a really big ridiculous point to the Azrael here, right? There's that cutscene where you're getting chased. The Azrael's basically watching you with thermal vision.
Yeah.
It's seen either you or Midas getting chased, and they're literally watching you. But if you go and rub yourself in some dirt, that thermal camera can no longer see you.
It would work for a minute, but it wouldn't. If it was just hovering around in a circle for 30 minutes, you'll be done. It's there's a thermal camera, and also Sandy, you said that Sentinel became more static versus they should be going on defensive. It's kind of that's what I could describe it. It's the Sentinel became the army versus the Wolves becoming the Marines. Is that the Marines go in, they attack, they liberate and stuff like that, where the army comes in and occupies.
Yeah, but
Marine spearhead, army occupies. Yeah.
That, I'm afraid, is the end of this podcast. Sorry if it cut off suddenly. We had a few minor issues in the last 10 minutes or so with sound, and we thought it was best to take that out. The 3 guests that we had on tonight, we will be getting them on again, and all of the technical issues that we've had in the last couple of podcasts are all fixed now, so we shouldn't have any more in future. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Thank you to all our guests. And thank you to the team. Thank you to all of my guys on the Discord for all their hard work. And thank you for listening and supporting us. Take care. We'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.